Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. One of the best college football games that we'll see all season wraps up. Washington gets it done 36-33 at home. And the favorite part of this game, and what I'll start with is you're going to not hear, this is not the last you're going to hear about these teams. I mean, my biggest takeaway from this game is both of these teams are legit some of the best teams that you see in the entire country. And you saw the playmakers on both sides really making plays. Going to dive into what we saw, some of the big takeaways. Now, before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. There was so much support. We talked a ton about this matchup all week. Oregon fans, Washington fans, y'all showed a ton of support. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. More importantly, we'd love to hear your big takeaways in the comment section. Some big decisions that head coaches made in this one. Love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Appreciate y'all rocking with the fellas. Dill, going to give you the T-box here because I was on Oregon. You were on Washington. You get it done. How are we feeling about this game here?
Yeah, and honestly, having watched it, these two teams are so tight, and they're and it's like they're just unbelievable teams. And I agree with you. If you don't see kind of USC really shape up and start playing a little better all around football, I don't see how USC can go in and beat either of these teams because offensively they're really, really, really good. And frankly, I think both teams are playing really respectable defense. It's not what's carrying them, but they're both really tough.
On both sides, like the score is 36-33. Obviously, we knew the offenses would score points, but how the offenses were scoring points, that was what is impressive. Like no blown coverages, pretty good tackling in space. Like the offenses were just making plays when it mattered. What I think it makes both these teams so special, and especially the Washington Huskies, you talk about the quarterback wide receiver battery, and you look at national championship caliber teams always seem to have the star quarterback and the wide receiver that can make the play when they need to. Still, Micheal Penix Jr., Roma Duzne, like it doesn't get any better than that across the country right now.
Yeah, and those two are just so in sync. And you saw when it was the big drive right after Dan Lanning decided to go for it and they got stopped. You see them be able to make the play you need to make. And again, even Micheal Penix really didn't play like his best football, I wouldn't say, top to bottom. I mean,
and that's just because the standard's so high.
That's doing it with stat watching for sure. Like 22 of 37 is like, in a sense for him, almost pedestrian, but like that was surprising, frankly, looking at it. Because again, when they needed big moments, he was really, really good stepping up and his teammates around him. That tight end catching that ball off his shoelaces, that's like a sneaky big play. So just everybody on this Washington Huskies team, when they needed the play, they were getting it. And that goes on offense and defense.
I think Micheal Penix Jr. right now, you asked me to turn in a Heisman ballot, like it's going to him. And he was like, I probably has like a bruised rib too. Like this dude was in pain, stayed on the field. The margins, I kind of want to get to that and talk about some of the key moments in this game. The margins are so small when you're playing like two of the best teams in the country going to battle. Like, the margins are small. Oregon actually outgains Washington in this game, but you knew this. Like, you knew both teams were going to have offense. It comes down to some of those big plays. First one I want to go to and kind of ask you and the listeners, like, how are we feeling about Dan Lanning getting after and going for it to end the half and trying to score a touchdown and not taking the 3 points?
And people can question Dan Lanning, and I'm sure, frankly, a lot of fans are going to say, oh, Dan Lanning blew this game. If Dan Lanning doesn't do the way he was doing it or play that aggressive style, honestly, you look at some of those calls, like they needed to score touchdowns, and then you get to that point in the fourth quarter, I almost think at the time I was saying punt it, but then you saw what Washington did once they got the football. 2 minutes is not like in any way an impediment if Washington has the ball. So I think in hindsight, like, yeah, maybe say punt it, but
no, honestly, I'm not even going hindsight because when you look at this game and it's like, if you ask Dan Lanning what situation you want to be in, you want Bo Nix having the ball to go win you the football game versus Micheal Penix having the ball to try to win. You want the ball in Bo Nix's hands. And that's kind of what I respect about both of these coaches is they know they have dudes at the quarterback position and they're going to trust those guys to make plays. And it didn't work out for either of them at points in this game, right? Dan Lanning, I believe, 0 of 3 on fourth downs. Washington, 2 of 3, but they had that big one where they were stopped on the goal line. But what you see and what I think like the players respect a lot is, hey, as a coach, we're going to trust you guys to make these plays. And I think that means a lot in the locker room and kind of inspiring confidence in these guys.
Yeah, and that's what I'd say. I think both coaches knew that their offenses are the catalyst. They're the drivers. And they do need the ball in their hands. However that happens, like going for it on fourth down and again, doing those things, that playing that aggressive style from the offensive side of the ball, that I think it does put both teams in a better position, because you look at these two quarterbacks, two of the best in the game. And if you got two of the best in the game, you got to use them.
That's kind of where I'm at too. So people are going to be coming from the rooftops and saying Dan Lanning should have punted, should have taken the points. You got to trust Bo Nix to make these plays. And he made a lot of big-time plays. And we say the quarterback wide receiver battery on the Husky side is one of the best in the country, probably the best right now. I mean, if there's a number two, it might be Bo Nix and Troy Franklin. I kind of want to give like an unsung hero. A lot of the conversation, I'm going to go to Micheal Penix Jr. and Rome Odunze, and they deserve a lot of it. Giles Jackson made some massive plays for the Huskies, and Dillon Johnson. Like we said, like the Washington Huskies rushing attack, they don't use it that much. But when they do, they can run the football. And in some big moments, Dillon Johnson was able to pick up some hard-earned yards. And again, not going to get the post-game press conference, but Dillon Johnson was massive for the Huskies here.
Yeah, and you want to talk unsung heroes, and I get it. You look maybe at the stats, what Oregon did through the air. They did put some yards up, but I mean, Jabbar Muhammad, a guy we've been talking about being a part of kind of this turnaround for this Husky defense. He is, especially in the first half, they were sticking him in some tough spots, and he was delivering. And again, you look, neither of these teams gave up a ton of big plays. I think Washington maybe hit a few more deeper shots down the field than Oregon did, but Washington, especially on defense, they really did a good job kind of putting the lid on that offense and making Oregon earn it. And frankly, when you saw those fourth down stands that they were able to make, that's part of not giving up the big play that Washington, frankly, gave up too much last year. So you got a secondary now that is much stingier. They don't make anything easy. And again, I know Oregon put up a lot of yards. They're going to put up a lot of yards on everybody.
Yeah.
This secondary did a really good job preventing those game-losing plays. And I think that was a huge part of this Husky win.
That might be the story of the game. Like Washington was definitely getting those chunk plays and those explosive plays a little bit more. And again, that's what you wanted to do in a shootout type game that you were going to see. Like you want to play good in the red zone. Washington won the battles in the red zone a little bit more than Oregon. Again, that probably is the story of the game when you're looking at it here. Now, Dill, looking at this Oregon Ducks team and what they tried to do to stop Micheal Penix, we said heading in, like, there's not much you can do. All right, they controlled the time possession. I believe they possessed it for almost 40 minutes of this game. So they did a good job with that. I thought they did a nice job mixing in some blitzes. I wish they went towards that inside interior a little bit more. I think they had success sending guys in those A and B gaps. But at the end of the day, when you send pressure to Micheal Penix and you're leaving those cornerbacks on one-on-one situations, like Micheal Penix, Jalen Polk,
lightning quick release and lightning quick decision making. He's just, again, I think they had to affect him. I think they did an okay job doing that, frankly. But there's just no answer to stopping him. He's not one of those players in college that will ever be stopped by anyone. I don't really care who they are, unless maybe it's one of those generational Georgia or Alabama teams that just you don't really see. But even that, I have a lot of trouble seeing anyone with the firepower to come up with answers to his game. Because you're right, he makes really quick decisions, and if you let him sit there, he's definitely.
And that's the thing is one of the questions was, can Oregon get pressure with their front four? And at times they were able to do so, and that's probably when they had the most success. But when you can't get pressure with your front four and you're giving Micheal Penix time, he's going to absolutely pick defenses apart. And at times that is exactly.
I was very impressed with the Washington offensive line, frankly.
That's what I was saying. A lot of people
tackles can play.
A lot of people want to talk about, and again, Micheal Penix Jr., my pick to win the Heisman. He's an absolute stud, playing like the best football player in college football. That being said, this offensive line continues to do a phenomenal job. Micheal Penix, one of the least sacked quarterbacks, and partially that's because he gets it out really quick, but that offensive line, two really, really good tackles who will be playing on Sunday. You look at this Huskies team, Dale, and there's just not many holes in it. I thought that defense played pretty damn good. The offense, there's absolutely no holes in that. And they didn't even have McMillan for that whole game. You get him back. I don't really see how you're stopping this Huskies offense.
I really hope we see this game again. This game is so fun. And shout out to Washington coming to the Big Ten. We got to get out there.
100%.
Rock, and obviously a really cool setup right on the water. That is one of those teams. I'm glad they chose the Big Ten over the Pac-12 or Big 12, I should say, or wherever else they could have picked. because I hope to see a Michigan Husky game.
And we're getting out to Seattle. If y'all got some boat places to tailgate, let the fellas know, because I want in on the festivities out on the water.
You gotta be sailgating. Why don't you just call it what it is?
There it is. I see. I'm not a Pac-12 guy yet. I mean, I'm gonna get used to it. I'm gonna get acclimated to the Washington Huskies culture there. Phenomenal game. I mean, you can go on, and we'll probably take a deeper dive and watch kind of the film back and give you some takeaways. But my big takeaway here is I think you saw two of the best teams in the country absolutely go to battle. You knew it was going to come down to 5 or 6 big-time plays. Washington was able to make a few more than the Oregon Ducks. Massive win for the Huskies, and this looks like the front runner to win the Pac-12. And I think this is a legitimate national championship contender. I think both of these teams are legitimate national title contenders. I want to see a rematch as well. Awesome game. Again, congrats, Washington Huskies fans. Appreciate y'all rocking with the fellas again. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.